everyone. Thanks for joining us, members of the Reimagining Public Safety Task Force. Thank you for joining us this evening for a special meeting and a presentation on racial equity. The presentation will be held by our Chief Equity Officer, Ms. Tiffany Ward. Her presentation, we're scheduled for an hour meeting today. She has prepared about a 30-minute presentation for us. After that, we will dedicate about 30 minutes for discussion and questions. So once again, thanks for joining us. And with that, I will turn it over to Ms. Ward.
All right. Good evening, folks. How are you? Good.
Good for Monday.
Okay. Let me see if I can share my screen. Just a second. Thank you for having me. Let's see.
Well, thanks, Tiffany, for being available. I know we coordinated this all within the past 10 days, so we really appreciate your flexibility.
Yeah, my pleasure, my pleasure. Tonight I'm just going to go over an overview quickly of racial equity in Montgomery County, where we are, what the framework is, what the bill lays out, and what the office is responsible for. And I am happy to take questions after that. Alrighty, so racial equity in Montgomery County. So advancing racial equity, at about, I guess, it's been maybe 2.5 years ago or so, we started our racial equity journey. But in December of 2019, we signed legislation, Bill 2719, and it became a law. That bill established the Office of Racial Equity and Social Justice, of which I am the Chief Equity Officer or the Director of the Office of Racial Equity and Social Justice. That law requires that all employees receive racial equity training. It requires that each department and office establish a racial equity and social justice action plan. It also requires that our Office of Legislative Oversight submit a racial equity and social justice impact statement for every bill that is put forward by the council. It also has established a racial equity and social justice committee, of which it has already been seated. That committee probably came on, I think they were appointed in July. They had their very first meeting in September. And so they are up and running. It is a 15-member body with 8 community members and 7 employee members. And the law also requires that each department appoint a racial equity and social justice lead. So far, we have 30 racial equity and social justice leads, and those racial equity and social justice leads have started their training in order to help the departments put together their racial equity and social justice action plans. That training is a full-year training and started with the Racial Equity Institute training. They're now receiving facilitation training, and then we'll go through an implementation training on how to basically create a racial equity action tool, how to then implement the tool, how to then create a racial equity and social justice action plan. Okay. This presentation really is about helping understand our framework here in the county when we're talking about racial equity and what we hope to achieve by closing gaps and eliminating disparities. It also is to clarify the department's role. I'll say in the 6 or 7 months. Ooh, how long is it now? No, probably, yeah, I guess 8 months now. Since I've been Chief Equity Officer, I've gotten numerous requests, some of which have been anything from personal discrimination cases from employees or residents or business owners. So a lot of what I've been trying to do is clarify what we do and don't do. So I don't take on compliance issues. So if people have compliance issues or, feel like they've been discriminated against, those types of issues are usually taken up with the Office of Human Rights or with our EEO office if you are an employee of the county. Advancing racial equity. What does racial equity mean? This is actually probably the most, I'll say controversial, but really it is the place where I feel like I always have to make the most clarification. So when we say racial equity, we really mean closing the gaps so that race is not a predictor of one's success, while improving outcomes for all. And so in studying this or going about getting ready to do this work, we found that across issue areas, the racial equity or the racial hierarchy held the same. Meaning whether you're talking about health outcomes, whether you're talking wealth outcomes, whether you're talking public safety, health, wealth, education, generally we'll find that whites would be at the top, that Asian or Latino folks are somewhere in the middle, and the blacks are at the bottom, right? And so that what we hope to do in trying to achieve racial equity is to disrupt that what I call racial hierarchy, to really say that your race will not be a predictor of where you will fall in any of those categories or issue areas. To close the gaps, we need to center communities of color. So we are targeting those communities, and we are asking those communities, engaging those communities first and foremost, because we know they are most burdened, right? So in your case, you all are dealing with public safety or and police issues. So if you want to come up with answers, we would say that you should probably ask those answers for the people for whom are most impacted. So those communities of color, whether they are Black men, whether they are Black women, whether they are Latino men, Latino women. So that's the kind of framework we are looking at here when we're talking about advancing racial equity. And not to take a back seat, we are really wanting to move beyond services. We know that it's important to give people food, to give people opportunities, or to subsidize housing, to create all kinds of ways for people to mitigate issues right now, right? Needs right now. But we really do want to create structures and systems that help them produce those or create those solutions for themselves. And we want to move beyond kind of a service-based framework. So in doing this work, we're using I would say a best practice that we have been watching GARE, which is the Government Alliance for Racial Equity, use across probably the last 10 years. And we have various partners or partner jurisdictions or other jurisdictions, much like us, who are also doing the same. Fairfax is using the GARE model to implement racial equity, as is DC, as is Loudoun County, as is Alexandria and Arlington. And best practices under the GARE model says that we must first normalize conversations on race. And so that's kind of where we are. We're starting that in the county. And really that is one, defining racial equity, defining race, defining equity, and then having people be comfortable just talking about race. Most people are not. And I would say, we're taught that it's more or less impolite. And then when we do talk about it, we're scared to offend. So a lot of what we've been doing in the last, I'd say year or so, is normalizing these conversations. And then we're organizing. So that's creating an internal infrastructure. We are in our department, of course, hiring and trying to get folks up to speed so we can do more trainings in the county. And then we're also, like I said, creating our racial equity leads program and training them, and hoping that many of them will become some of our trainers. And then educating our leadership and having these conversations and creating infrastructure within and across departments to actually create the infrastructure and structures needed to make this more of a institutionalized response and less of a symptom response or services response. And lastly, we're operationalizing. And operationalizing really means creating our racial equity tool, using that tool, creating our racial equity and social justice action plans, getting the data together, getting strategies together within and across departments that then move the needle and help us close the gaps and reduce these disparities. So I'm not sure if you guys can see the words on this, but I want you to be able to see at least the three big words across here, and that's diversity, inclusion, and equity. Really important to get these right. Diversity and inclusion are very important, but they are not equity. Diversity really is an effort to bring people from different backgrounds together, right? Whether that is in a workplace, whether that is in a community, neighborhoods. And inclusion really says we're going to bring those folks together and have folks with different levels of decision making at the table, right? They're going to be able to contribute. And equity really says that we're going to focus and give those folks power to implement policies and practices to eliminate racial disparities across all groups. And so when we talk about equity, it isn't just about who's in the room. It isn't just about who's talking in the room. It really is who has the power in the room, who's moving decisions, who's moving resources, right? And so racial equity isn't just a buzzword. It really is a power sharing tool if we use it right, if we do it right. The three key factors. So when we talk about race, we say that race is a construct. It is not biologically determined. By that, I mean everybody here. In fact, I think there's probably more genetic similarity or dissimilarity, between African Americans than there is maybe between a Black person and a white person. Race is a construct. It is a political construct that has been used to divide people in this country and divide resources in this country since its very inception. Our Racial Equity Institute training teaches us literally from the time America became what we know it to be, race was used to divide labor, right? When people first came to this country, they were called by their nationality. They were Scotsmen, they were Germans, they were Danish, and Black people were called African, right? And not until the early 1700s did you see even the word white used in a legal way. And since then, it has been used to divide. So we also say that policy drives the social construction of race. So if we were not white or Black or whatever the label was before then what was the usefulness? Why the policies to create all of those, right? Why the policies to create all of those constructs, to create all of those groups, and what has been the impact of those policies over time? And so as we work through the systems that's been created, we have seen the damage it's done, and we have finally decided to call it for what it is. And while we did not create it, we are saying, okay, we're going to take some responsibility for trying to undo some of its impacts. So next slide, we'll talk a little bit more about the policies that and the ways they've impacted both Black folks and other folks within America in particular. You know, we had very explicit policies that said Blacks could not live in certain neighborhoods. We were talking about redlining, right? We said we had particular policies that said the Blacks could not go to particular schools, right? We know that is segregation, is school segregation, and it was very, very clear. Later on, when those laws when that became illegal, we know that we had some of the same outcomes. So discrimination was not explicit, but it was still implicit. We still had quote unquote race neutral policies, but that never addressed the policies that before had already separated us. And so those policies, while intending to be innocuous, just really helped keep in place a hierarchy that had already been set up. And so we are getting to a phase where we're saying we want proactive policies and practices that help us get to a more fair and just outcomes for everybody. So particularly for communities of color that have been burdened by these impacts. And by communities of color, I mean Black, Latino, Asian, and other communities who have been very purposely left out. This has been another, I would say, pretty controversial part of the work in the last 6 to 8 months. Is people aren't really comfortable when we talk about racial equity. I'm honest with you. People want to just say equity. They say, well, what about disabled people? What about women? What about people of other who have been othered in different ways? And we say that race is pervasive and deep. We know that if you do not call it out, you will not get to the root. You will not get to race. Affirmative action, I think, is a good example of that. When affirmative action was put in place in the 70s and 80s, it was intended to help give Black people a fair chance, whether it's in business, whether it's in schools, whether it is in other places, but it never said Black people. So as a result, Black people have not been the biggest beneficiary of affirmative action. In fact, white women have. And I think if we are going to disrupt the racial hierarchy, then I think we have to make ourselves or sit with the discomfort sometimes of talking about and targeting race. Racial anxiety, of course, is on the rise in the last particularly 6 months with the outcomes of the COVID-19 crisis, with the outcome, or rather with the watching of the George Floyd murder. I think it's been on everybody's mind. And everybody wants to know how they're going to deal with it. And I think the first thing we have to do is firstly talk about race and then talk about the institutional and structural ways that we have marginalized communities. So we say we are explicit but not exclusive when talking about race. So it's an intersectional analysis, of course. I mean, I am a Black woman. And so, of course, I am impacted by discrimination against women. I am impacted by the pay differential for women. But in particular, if we're looking at the pay differential and we break down even within women, right, who is paid less, we know that Black and Latino women are paid even less than white women. And if we can do that with all of the other the groups that we have just listed here, and we would still see those same disparities if we broke them down by race. So we are exclusive but not explicit. We do look at gender, at ethnicity, disability, religion, sexual orientation, and I would even say class, but with a firm and steady gaze at race first. To the next slide. I don't know if you all can see this. So I'm sure you all have seen this slide many times in many different ways, and it really is to illustrate the difference between equity and equality. So there's a slide in the middle, and I apologize for how small this is, that shows a fence, and there are 3 people trying to look over the fence. The first picture shows a picture of equality. So everybody trying to look over the fence gets the same box, lifts them just as much off the ground, no matter how tall they are, no matter how tall the fence is, right? Everybody gets the same thing. We say that equity does not give everybody the same thing. It gives everybody what they need to be able to look over that fence. So that means if you need 3, if you need 2, if you need 1, whatever is needed is what you get to be able to get over that fence. And in the recent, I would say, months or even maybe a year or so, people have talked about the fact that if we really want to go further than equity, we can talk justice and remove that fence for everybody, right? So justice, so equity basically isn't the last step. Equity is a way to get to justice. So I just wanted to...
Tiffany?
Yes?
Hey, quickly.
Am I over time already?
No, you're not over time. I think some have been in the chat box wanting to see the image enlarged. Are you able to put it in presentation mode?
Let me see if I can do it enlarged. Oh, I don't know if I can, y'all. Hold on for a sec.
So Tiffany, right on your left-hand side, if you scroll down towards the bottom left side, you see where normal view is, all the way at the bottom. Normal view, that button right next to it. Yeah, click that one. See if that'll bring it up.
Is that a little better for folks?
That's a little bit better. Yes, thank you.
And I will leave Caroline these slides as well if you guys want a copy of them.
Great, thanks.
Yes, I would like to have a copy of it, please.
Okay, I'll leave that. All right. Can I move on, or you guys want to look at it a little bit longer? You're like, okay.
You can move on. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I went over what the law requires already. So when we talk about a systems analysis, we say that we want to analyze problems holistically to identify the root cause and contributing factors. That really goes back to not just treating symptoms, right? And symptoms should be treated. That should not be the only treatment. That is, if somebody's hungry, yes, we should feed them. But we should also analyze a system that has left 30% of our population hungry. We should be asking, why is that? And not just giving people bags of food. And that is what we mean when we say a systems analysis, right? If you have, a list of people, you say 60% of the people have broken this law, then, okay, clearly arresting these people or might be the solution, but it also is worth noting, what is the law and why is it that 60% of the people, and for whatever reason, are breaking this law? Do we need to analyze whether or not the law itself is flawed, right? Or do we need to analyze whether, and this really comes down to what we call a groundwater, lake, and fish analysis of the work. That is, a lot of the work we do is very fish oriented. That is, we seek to fix people, right? But if you go by a lake and you see one fish that's belly up, and you wonder, okay, what happened to that fish? If you go by next time and there are 10 that are doing so good, you're like, well, maybe he was a member of the same family as the other fish I saw the other day. But if you go by and you smell the fish before you get to the pond or to the lake, because there's so many that are dead, you should be asking yourself, what is going on in that lake? That so many of the fish have died. And so that is really what we mean by the systems analysis. What is it about that system that is catching or killing so many of those fish? Building a systemic equity. To achieve systemic equity through new rules, activities, and institutions. So it's really kind of what I just talked about. And giving a lake analysis, trying to come up with a new way of building a system so that everybody is thriving, right? Just as racism operates structurally, so too must racial equity to supplant racism. So this is the systems view. I'll talk a little bit about the role of the department. So our role is to provide the training and facilitation for our employees and in various formats. And we are currently working on our Train the Trainer curriculum so that we have the capacity to actually train all of our employees like the bill calls for. We are here to provide technical assistance, meaning we are here to assist directors and our racial equity leads in analyzing their policies, procedures, or protocols, and turning them into policies and procedures that actually mitigate racism and not exacerbate or leave things race neutral. We are here to provide opportunities for folks to work across departments, which we've been doing. And when I say we, right now, I do just me. I am a department of one, though I should be growing very soon. So we've worked with DEP, DOT, and they've worked together on some projects. And so that has been, that's really been good in creating synergy between departments. Our department reports annually on its work. We actually just had our first annual report, though we haven't been up a full year just yet. I put out the annual report on September 30th. of this year as the legislation calls for. And I can pass that on to this group should they want it. And as I said before, the Racial Equity and Social Justice Office is not a compliance office. We handle, or we try to handle, policy and procedure issues and help our departments and the county look at solutions from a systems-based lens, with race and racial equity being in the forefront. That is my presentation today, and I'm happy to take a question.
I just have one question. So your department deal with employment discrimination?
It doesn't. So the EEO office does that?
So with policy, where do you get your guidance from if it's policy on employment or on employees? You said, so where do you get that from?
So for instance, one of our pilot projects for our office has been working with the Office of Human Resources on creating what we're calling an equitable hiring tool. So that is making sure that along the hiring process, right, where there's a pipeline or where there's a glitch, like why, if you have X amount of qualified Black, Latino, or other candidates, are we always getting or always not getting those candidates in the final pool? So my department helps people analyze where the bottleneck is, where the processes and procedures are basically creating inequities. So individual cases of discrimination, or I would say discrimination would go to the EEO office, which has a whole bunch of federal and state regulations, which say what can and cannot happen. So that's why we don't do individual cases. So we really are trying to work within processes, right?
But you do a barrier analysis with the information that you have.
Yes.
Why? Okay.
Yeah. So
okay.
and some departments, right now we're at the very beginning phases. So some departments don't collect much data on race at all. So we're starting at the beginning, right? So what are you collecting data on? Are you disaggregating that data? Right. And so we just got a bunch of information in July from our county stat office to find out what people aren't collecting.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Tiffany. I'm going to ask you to kindly, if you can stop sharing your screen.
Sharing. I'm sorry. Yeah,
that's okay. Just so we can all see each other.
Yes. Give me just a second.
That's fine while you're doing that. We'll be chatting. I know that there have been some questions already put in the chat session. So to the team members, this meeting was organized on your behalf. So we have a small group. So I welcome you. You could either type your questions in the chat box. We'll read them. Raise your hand, just so we're not, speaking over each other. I'll be monitoring those who are raising their hand, so I can call on them. So Mark, I noticed that your hand is raised. I am going to get to Scott first, because I think Scott had a question early on, which I think will be an easy one for Tiffany to answer. Scott's question was, does the police department have a point person appointed?
Yes, the police have appointed a racial equity lead, as has fire.
All right. Thanks for that. All right. Mark, you're up.
Sure. Tiffany, thanks. That was a very helpful overview of the process and all. I'm interested in the part of the legislation that requires the council conduct an impact statement on legislation that's introduced. And has that process begun yet? And if so, are there examples of what the impact statement looks like? And also, a related question, I've been involved at the state level, and there's about a half dozen states that have impact statement provisions like that. But are you aware whether any other counties are already doing this kind of thing? I haven't heard of it before at the county level.
So racial equity impact statements for bills have started. I think they have done maybe one or two. That process has been led by the Office of Legislative Oversight, and more specifically by Elaine Bonner Tompkins and Dr. Theo Holt are producing those. There is, as far as I remember, one other, and that is Madison, Wisconsin, that is doing them. And I can't say that they are doing them for every piece of legislation coming out of their local body.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks.
So we are, it is pretty, you're right. It is, we are not in a lot of companies doing that work. It's a good amount of work, and we're on a pretty tight timeline. I think they get 21 days from introduction to the whole process to produce a racial equity impact statement.
Well, and I think the county should be proud that it's got a policy.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, good.
Great. All right, I don't see any hands raised, so while folks are raising their hand, Patricia, I see you. I was going to go to your question in the chat box, but if you want to unmute yourself.
Yes, I put my question in the chat.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm looking for it. Does your office make presentations like this to community organizations? Yes. And if you'd like for me to, I'm doing one, I think on Veterans Day. I forgot it was Veterans Day. They kind of got me on that one. So I do, and I've been doing them for the past few months. So if you would like for me to do something, a presentation like this for your group, just let me know.
All right, Tiffany, it looks like our next question is from Marvin. His question is, does your analysis extend to procurement?
Yep. So we had our initial GARE cohort, and GARE is, like I said, our Government Alliance for Racial Equity. And that 9-month cohort included our Director of Procurement, included our Director of Human Resources, included our Director of Housing, and Community Development. So yes, it does extend to procurement. And procurement is also assigned a racial equity lead. And in fact, I've been in talks with Ash probably since we both started working in this administration, talking about how this is going to work or how we are going to implement. And procurement, much like HR, has a whole bunch of other federal and state rules and regulations they also have to go through. But yes, we are doing this work too with procurement.
And Tiffany, I know there was a question earlier on about a point person for police department, right?
Yeah.
So underneath the law, basically every department is required to have a point person. And I know you mentioned earlier on that police and fire has identified one. Mm-hmm. And I know you also mentioned DEP has already started doing some work. Yeah. Are there other departments?
Sure. I would say almost all of our departments have leads right now. If you name one and they don't, because one, people know how important this is. It really was not hard once I just asked directors for their appointees. So everybody, housing, fire.
So with that, Tiffany, are the department point of contact, is that information public or will it become?
Yeah, I can let you know who those folks are.
Okay, so with that, and as far as information sharing, I know earlier on you agreed to share this presentation with this group. Mm-hmm. As a reminder to those on the call, as well as those that may be viewing us on Facebook, we do have a Reimagining public safety webpage, which can be accessed through the Montgomery County website. So all of our information that we've been sharing through our task force meetings, we do upload that onto that webpage. So the information that Tiffany shares with us, we will attach it to this meeting details and make it available on our webpage. Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up. I'm wondering, I guess my question is more for Mark and Bernice, about inviting the point person in the police department for racial equity and social justice to either present to our group or join our group somehow or get involved in our discussions.
Well,
so I can.
Yeah, go ahead, Caroline.
Sorry.
You're probably the first person to address. We haven't had a conversation directly about it, so that's why I was going to
going to start saying, but Caroline would finish that.
Sure. Let me start off, and then, of course, I'll let Bernice and Mark. So one thing I will state is that police has been integral in this reimagining work. We do have 4 members, senior leadership members of the police department involved through the various focus groups that we have. So each of the focus groups should have a police representation there. Off the top of my head, I don't know who the point person is for police, so my apologies for not knowing who that person is, but we will find out who that person is and ensure that we share that information. As Bernice has indicated, we have not had discussions on inviting anybody in addition to continue this discussion on racial equity. As you may know, all of the subgroups are actively meeting and they're tackling a lot of information. So if there is a need to continue this discussion, either at the large task force or with one of the sub-task force, one of the subgroups, we would be more than happy to have that discussion. With that, Bernice, I'll allow you to follow up, and I do see a couple of hands raised, and I promise I will get to you.
Yeah, the one thing I would ask guys that, we have 5 different focus groups, and in terms of working towards racial equity, it might be a situation where I think if the focus groups just kind of focus on what tools, what resources, or what persons are needed to help us get to a point of racial equity, it might be more than the police officers. So maybe having these conversations in the focus groups to figure out, are there any other people that can speak to the particular need to try to achieve racial equity. Those conversations should be had in focus groups, and then we can kind of come together and figure out how we can share that information as a whole group. So that's just something I'm thinking of off the top of my head.
All right, Bernice, I know your hand is raised as well.
Oh, yes.
So did you have something else to address? Okay.
Yeah, I had a couple questions for Tiffany, but I'll keep it to one because we're kind of close on time. I know you mentioned earlier that there were some groups that had, or some agencies that had recorded, had data on race and some did not. Is there a reason behind that? I just wanted to kind of get more information about that particular aspect of your work.
No, not really. So some, for instance, in housing, some folks are required to keep data by race. Others are not required to disaggregate data. Some just have not been collecting, and we have not required it before now. And the law right now does not require it. But I will say that the council is always looking at this law. And in fact, the law was just amended and will add 2 members to the Racial Equity and Social Justice Committee, as well as add to OLO's workload by requiring that they do racial equity and social justice impact statements for zoning text amendments. So I imagine that when we do the regs, which is coming up soon, that there will be a requirement for collecting or disaggregating data by race. Right now, we just, folks, depending on what their needs are within the department, they collect data differently. Every department does.
Okay. All right. I see Gareth Murray.
Yeah.
You have your hand raised. Okay.
Yes. Good evening. I got on the call late, but I heard you say something, Tiffany, in reference to an analysis of the data when you have a population, I'm assuming population of applicants for a particular position, and there's an analysis of the data in terms of who responded based on race.
So that was really just a hypothetical. I can't say that HR in particular has done all of that analysis in doing and creating a racial equity tool. We are encouraging them and trying to go through all the steps that are necessary basically to root out places where implicit bias can take place and create a bottleneck, places where where we are basically unknowingly or knowingly sifting out qualified applicants of color. So, but I'm not speaking about a particular study. I'm speaking just hypothetically.
Okay. So you're talking more of a process.
Yes, I'm talking more process.
Yeah, and I think that's extremely important, because in my few years on the planet, what I've noticed is that that screening process oftentimes is where we lose many of the qualified individuals.
Right.
Because if I went to Podunk U versus Harvard, and for example, well, perfect example, UDC at one point, when they first started, had the best MBA program in this region.
Wow.
But if you told someone that you graduated from Federal City College as opposed to University of Maryland or Johns Hopkins or whatever, they probably wouldn't weigh that too positively.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you're on the right track. The question is whether or not you can get HR folks to buy in to looking at the entire process, not just after the person gets into the pool.
Agreed. And that is the task. And I will say HR is just the beginning of that process. And I can't speak to the details of where they are on building the racially equitable hiring tool. And I see somebody else, Michael, has another question about HR. Have we seen a shift? Not yet. We just aren't that far into the process. Our institutions or entities expanding their searches. And when you say, you mean departments, Michael? Are institutions or entities expanding their searches to different areas and or demographics?
So we're talking about the subject and like the HR hiring practices, and similar to what Mr. Murray was touching on. I mean, if you're not looking somewhere, you're not going to find anything.
Right.
And so I think we're kind of touching that, what my comment was in the chat room. But I appreciate it, Ms. Ward.
Thank you.
Tiffany, another question I saw here on the chat was relating to audits. Like, what would an audit look like? What will the racial equity audit be? So I don't know if you've gotten that far in the process yet, or if you're still early on.
So we aren't doing an official audit, and I'm not sure what they mean by that. I'm not sure who asked that question. If they want to expound on that.
Moore.
Okay. If they want to expound on that, then I'd appreciate it.
Linda, are you still with us? Oh, Linda, I see you, but you are on mute. There you go.
Okay. Hi.
Hello.
The audit piece, I'm not sure. I saw it in some of the information that we looked at our last meeting, or at our focus group meeting, it was a part of the information from the...
Oh, maybe you're thinking the police audit?
It said audit. I wasn't sure what or where that fits into this bigger picture.
Okay.
Sure. If you're referring to the audit,
or process audits, or
all right, Linda, I'll take that on. Yes, there is an independent audit of the police department that will be performed. It will be a comprehensive audit of the police policies as well as their program. So in the last meeting that we had, we introduced the group to our consultant, Effective Law Enforcement for All, who will be the consultant that will be conducting the audit of the police department. So that is underway. It just started. We will keep this group engaged and informed as we move forward with that audit. But that audit will be looking at all of police's programs, looking at hiring, discipline, training, looking at their practices and policies relating to traffic stops. So there's quite a bit that will be looked at throughout the audit.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
But that doesn't relate to so there's not anything that is a racial equity audit?
No, not necessarily. Like we're not calling like analysis of internal processes and procedures an audit per se.
Okay. All right.
That's a racial equity, but underneath the independent audit of the police department, the consultant will be looking to see if there are any biases within the department's programs or policies that may need to be further reviewed and reformed. So you may have heard that mention of a racial bias audit of the police department. May have been what you saw.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Bernice, I think I've gone through the questions in the chat. I see your hand is still raised. I know you had a couple of questions. Thanks for allowing some others to get in.
I think you have a couple folks in the waiting room too.
Yeah, I didn't tell you to raise, but I do have another question if no one else has a question. One of the things you intrigued me about what you said about how some of these conversations, and a lot of people don't like to talk about racial equity. So it maybe for us as task force members, if you can kind of give your 2 cents on some of the pain points that you have seen in your work in terms of trying to achieve racial equity, some of the reoccurring issues or conversations that are tough conversations to have, that maybe as we go through our focus groups, we can be cognizant of and be sensitive and proactive in dealing with them.
So I'm really actually big on taking a historical perspective, firstly, on race and policy. So I think that honestly, history is a really good place to start when we are talking about race and policy. So, you know, from its inception, and I've been doing a good amount of reading and research for a long time on race and policy. So I think that starting there is helpful. So I think lots of times people feel like, I won't say these things are new, or that these policies or the way we're going to fix these policies is going to be not easy, but they need to know how rooted and how deep this problem is. And I think if you can show a historic lens, that's actually really important. 2, I think it's really important for people to understand that everybody is racialized. And so by that, I mean, when we talk about race, we generally talk about Black, Latino, you know, other people. We don't talk about white people. You know, white people too have been racialized. Like, you know, like I said, you know, when people first came to this country, they came from Poland. They came, you know, people were called by their nationality, right? And so I think when you talk about white people as being racialized, it also kind of centers the fact that there is this hierarchy is serving or not serving us very purposely, and that everybody's playing a role here, or everybody's been put into a role. And so I think some critical analysis about race is really important. And 2, I think that we have to create spaces where people are able to trust one another. And I know that is not necessarily the easiest thing, particularly because your group isn't going to be together for a long time. So having conversations that deal in policy and with some space for digesting both professionally and personally is important. What else? I'm trying to think of some of the other touch points or places. There are just some people who just simply don't believe that this is that what we are saying is true. That somehow this is an agenda, right? So for them, I don't give up. I just kind of say, well, you know, you don't have to listen to me. You can read the 132 books I've read, or you can, or the, 600 documentaries there are about not necessarily this particular issue, but how this issue has impacted or is currently impacting everybody. So, I've done conversations, about books. I've done conversations on documentaries. And then I've done, just personal conversations. Right now, we are in the midst of having our racial equity leads do facilitation training. So they're being trained as facilitators of how to lead conversations on race. And so they're going through these conversations themselves, but also learning how to sit in the room and kind of be uncomfortable not knowing, but also being honest and forthright and speaking personally about their own racialized experiences. I don't know if that really answered your question, Bernice. If not, I can talk offline. I can talk offline about some of the techniques I've used or not used, or places where people could dig deeper if they care to. And I think that's really important too. I think sometimes we come to this and we want instant answers, right? This hurts now. Why? What are you doing today? And I get that, right? This does hurt now. What are we doing today? Yes. But I think that you can cause harm if you are doing without knowing. So I think, empowering people to read and do things outside of here is important too.
Right. No, you're fine. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Tiffany, thanks for that. I want to follow up on what you just mentioned as far as the racial equity leads from the departments are now going through a facilitation training on how to have these conversations, right? And not everyone is going to have the answer, and how, we know that these conversations are uncomfortable, and it will take some courageous conversations in some of those. And it's okay to be silent at some times to hear other voices in the room. With that, I want to follow back with a question that was asked earlier on a couple of times regarding the lead, the racial equity lead at the police department. So I have received a message since that the lead with PD is Assistant Police Chief Willie Parkalone, who is also on our Reimagining Public Safety Task Force. If I'm recalling correctly, I believe he is on Group 3. But with that, just circling back to what Tiffany said, that right now all of the leads are in the process of going through training. Assistant Chief Parkalone was recently assigned to that position. So as far as his being available to come talk to the group about the direction of where the department is going, it's probably would be repeating what Tiffany is sharing with us tonight as far as the county's goal and vision for implementing racial equity within throughout the county.
So Officer Lone, also Assistant Chief, sits on our Racial Equity and Social Justice Board. And you all have another, and the police department actually has another lead. They are, and they will be receiving, our committee is receiving different training from our leads. And so, I think you all will be rich with information and with tools.
Great, thanks. Let's see, I did see a hand raised by Maria Lynn. Did you still have a question?
Yeah, sure. Maria Lynn here. So Tiffany, something that came up in Group 3's kickoff meeting that I found very interesting but didn't quite know how to articulate was centered around institutional racism. Just to have a shared definition for the sake of the group, I put one, I looked up one, and I tried to figure out how it sat with everyone. By and large, no one had any objections. However, I think it was right after a few group members were introducing themselves, and they were letting us know what they want to get out of this or what they would like to achieve. Mm-hmm. And after I posted the institutional racism definition, some people in my group were a bit confused. They felt as though they didn't necessarily, I don't want to say want to, but they weren't prepared to make recommendations that take care of institutional racism. And they were like, some of them made a point to say that they are very interested in police and immigration or police and domestic violence. And what my goal was when I gave that definition was to illuminate the fact that institutional racism operates in all of these tenets, in all of these facets, in all of these areas all the time. And I kind of found it, I'm, to be quite candid, I found it kind of surprising that people, that it can still seem like something that's sort of siloed, that is independent of other issues. Yeah. So I'm wondering what it is you would have said to that, or what your mindset would be. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So, I think I would just go back to a historic foundation, right?
What do you mean by that?
That is, basically showing that race from the history of this country has been honestly a tenet of which we have built almost all of our institutions.
Right.
Whether or not that is our housing institutions, whether or not it is our education institutions, whether or not it is our public safety, that race has been and continues to be one of the tenets of which we have built race and racism. Let me not just say race. And so I think for me, I'm trying to understand what their, objection would have been or was, and saying that they weren't comfortable, making suggestions that for structural change. Is that what they were saying?
Yeah, I think my co-chair Chris is on, and he can chime in if he wants to. Scott is too. A few other people from Group 3, but
sure.
Go ahead.
So and it also sounds to me like the fish, lake, and groundwater analysis or framework would be really good for your group as well. I think a systems analysis can be difficult, right? Especially because we're all more or less in the business of fixing fish, whether we think so or not. And so to get from that analysis to the big picture analysis, to the systems analysis, is not easy. And so I think maybe that framework analysis could be helpful. If folks are saying, well, what can we, maybe if people don't drive down that street, what is it about that street that is causing so many people to be ticketed, right? So, or what is it about that, instead of being so narrow and in fact pulling out, right? If you just look, if your lens gets a wider and wider view and you realize, it's that street in this neighborhood, but in the neighborhood over, there's another street. And in the city over, there's another street. So it isn't about that street per se. But you have to have a wider view. So I maybe am thinking the fish, lake, groundwater framework would help people embrace more of a systems analysis of change.
Thank you.
That was to being so focused on what they want, how they want to impact things.
Right. That was helpful. Thank you. You said fish, lake, groundwater.
Folks have been asking me to do that particular training, and I'm trying to get that training out there.
All right, girl, let me know. I'll be there.
You and everybody else. I'll put you on the list.
Thank you.
All right, Tiffany, it is 6:30. Once again, I really want to thank you for being available and having this presentation as well as this discussion with this group. Gone through the chat, and it looks like we've been able to address everyone's question, either from the chat session or those who have raised their hands. Seeing the time, I know we had committed to only an hour, and I know that all of the task force members have been busy having a lot of meetings with their individual focus groups. So really, truly appreciate the service of each of the task force members. So thanks for joining us tonight. We have completely covered our agenda, so I'm really impressed. Tiffany is a resource that is available. She is on one of the task force with us. She has graciously offered to share her presentation in materials with us, we will ensure that we get that uploaded to the webpage. If there are any questions that come up after tonight, please feel free to continue to send those to the Reimagine email. I am monitoring those, and we will make sure that we respond to you as quickly as possible. So thanks, everyone, and I wish you all a good evening.
Thank you, Caroline. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you.
It's exactly what this building will be. Will be a great employer for people throughout Wheaton.
The building will also be